Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Focus Hoops. Today we're going to be talking all about homegrown hype. We're going to take a look at some of the exciting young junior players that we've got in this country and who to look out for as we go into the 2022-23 season. I'm Kaz Bullock, and joining me today we have Mr. Manchester Basketball, Adam Masters of Brand 161 and Below the Rim podcast fame. Ads, how are you doing?
It's great to be here, Kaz, and it's far more polite than having to sit with Nicholson, Pablo, and Grant. So yeah, I'm good.
Looking forward to a bit of a different twist on a podcast for you.
Yeah.
And we have the man behind the stats page, Mr. Dave Owen himself, founder of the Homegrown Hype hashtag, and just has all the stats anybody could ever need to do with British basketball. Dave, how are you?
Yeah, really excited to talk about this. I think it's lovely having a homegrown hype focus where it's not specific to one competition or anything like that. We can just talk about talent freely. I think it's going to be fun.
Definitely. So let's get into it. In fact, before we get into it, we should state this is not a ranking. We're not comparing. We're not contrasting. We're just picking out some players that we want to highlight, junior players that we just think are exciting to watch and to keep an eye on. So, disclaimer, don't get mad at us. It's not a ranking. So, Dave, do you want to just talk a little bit about how this has come about, why we're doing this?
Yeah, so the kind of age ranges we're looking at are kind of 03, 04, 05, and 06 born players. So the kind of under 19, under 18, under 17 academy age players, looking at the 22, 23 performances and just, celebrating them, some of the top performers that'll be in the kind of mix for the GB squads and stuff like that. We'll be able to watch them over the summer on GB TV. Pay you 20 quid, make sure we get a plug-in for that. Great new service, chance to support the GB teams for very little money, so everyone should get on that. And the way I've kind of brought this to the table is I've developed an algorithm that takes performance data for players, factors in kind of every aspect of performance and places on a kind of rating matrix on like a star rating system, like we kind of hear about in the US where they're a 5-star recruit and all that kind of terminology. Because you always have the difficulty of, well, this player's got these numbers in the WBBL, this player's got these numbers in Division 1 women, this player's got these numbers in WEABL. And it's like, well, what does it all mean? Like, what are the levels? Where are the tiers and the thresholds for national team selection or a scholarship or whatever it is? So I feel like I've potentially solved that, and I'm very excited about where that project can go. But as an investor, we're turning into a business, early days, watch this space. But that's the kind of background of how I can kind of come up with a completely objective list of the top performing players, where it's not my opinion saying, oh, these are the players that Dave likes. It's just purely objective and gives us a really nice way that we can have an open conversation about these players, feeling like it's credible and we're not being unfair by missing anyone out.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a very exciting thing you've come up with as well. And Adam, I know, like me and you are both big fans of the junior players. We do a lot of work with Basketball England, with junior Final Fours, under 18s. And I know, it's always exciting talking about younger players, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we always say the same thing. It doesn't matter how stressful the event can be because there's a lot going on. For me, what we do is we commentate on the game at its purest form, and these kids, whether it's the 14s, the 16s, the 18s, they still have their hoop dreams. Yeah, there's nothing tainted them yet. They've not reached that point where they're having to negotiate contracts and have people latching onto them. It's still just that absolute desire and love of the game. And what Dave's done is actually the best thing that could happen for him, because it's going to give people overseas that are shopping around the information that they're used to getting, and hopefully it's going to enhance them to be looked at in the same way as the kids in the States or in Europe. Because I'm of the belief that at the moment, whilst there's a lot to go at, it's a nice problem to have, because there's that much British talent out there at the moment and the game is in a really good place. We saw it at Final Four. We saw it at the Junior Cup finals. We're going to see it in a few weeks at Aspire. Yeah. There's so many talented kids, boys and girls, right now. It's in a good place. So for Dave to be doing this when he's doing it now, it's kind of everything seems to be aligning.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so let's kick things off. And the player that I've just picked out here on the list that we've got is, I'm going to go Faye Endean. So Faye Endean playing for Team Solent Kestrels in the WNBL, plays for Itchen College in the WEABL. And Dave, obviously you have the stats, but let me just read you out a list of Faye Endean's accolades for this season. Division 1 MVP, Division 1 Young Player of the Year, All Conference First Team, All British Team. She was 4th in points per game with 19.1. She was 2nd in 3-point percentage with 35%. She led the league in assists per game with 7, led the league in steals. Then in the WEABL, she was the MVP of the South Conference. She was the All-Conference First Team. And she was the Finals MVP in Division 1 with a near triple-double. She is a phenomenal player, and she is definitely one of the most exciting players that we've got coming out of this country.
100%. Yeah. And I think what's really interesting for me, and one of the main reasons I want to set this up, is obviously I stay in my objective lane in that, I'm that one person in the country that across the entire breadth of the game, male and female, and just objectively say, here's the line. These are the players we should be talking about and really pushing and kind of celebrating. But I don't watch nearly as much basketball as I'd like to, purely because of time constraint, mostly due because I spend so much time doing all this stats work. I don't actually get to watch basketball, which is a little sad at times. But yeah, I wanted to really kind of come on and get that kind of subjective kind of context of you guys that spend time commentating and watching these players a lot more than I do. So I can see if my perception on the stats kind of matches where you guys see these players sitting. So yeah, it's really interesting for me to get that context.
Yeah, and for me, so I saw Faye. Well, I was commentating the Division 1 final, and me and Adam saw Faye Endean at the playing for Itchen College in the WEABL final. It was against Ipswich Cola. Apologies, it was against
Cola. Yeah.
Yes. And for me, Faye Endean's the type of player that she is such a scorer. She's such an all-round player. And like I said there, she had 18, 11, and 9 in the D1 final. She's had a couple of triple-doubles throughout the season in Division 1. So she's obviously a threat from all around. But she is the type of player that she doesn't have to score to make an impact on the game. She's such a good distributor. You see her on the floor. She can make those passes, make those cuts. And she knows exactly where her teammates are going to be, and she can get people the ball. She's a type of player for me that makes the rest of her team better as well. She builds them up, and she's just such a threat offensively, defensively, leading league in steals. She just has that eye to just jump out, get in those passing lanes, and she's so dangerous because she can just do a bit of everything.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the numbers now for Division 1 women's season. 2 things jumped out at me straight away from my numbers geek perspective. She's the only player in Division 1 women that's of the age group we're talking about that's over 35% from the 3-point line whilst taking at least one a game. So that tells you something. And then we always talk about, generally you want obviously assists to be higher than turnovers. 7.1 assists versus 3.5 turnovers. But then actually the steals are 3.6. So for a steals to be over the turnovers, it's pretty crazy. Like those, you don't see those kind of steal numbers often. And you're talking about 19 points a game and 7.2 rebounds. Like it's just right across the board. And obviously on one of the most important stats I always look at, what's the win percentage of the team? Are those numbers contributing to winning, or are they stats that someone has to get on a losing team without being, unkind to anyone? We know people can score 20 on a team that doesn't win any games, right? So if the numbers are contributing towards winning, that puts them in a whole different category on my algorithm and everything I kind of take into account.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first got the email, Kaz, with the rosters on and the information for those games, and I'm going, Itchen. I thought it said kitchen, and I was like, Itchen. And I had to do a bit of homework to figure that one out. So it's the first time I'd seen them and seen her, and everything you two said right, because funnily enough, this week I've had this conversation with a few people, and when you're looking at players of this kind of age group, when you refer to them as great players, you sort of got to look at it 2 ways. There's a lot of people that are great individual players, very skillful, very good at what they do, whether it's shooting from the outside, getting inside, or doing whatever. But she's one of those players that could potentially be great because she makes the players around her better as well. So for me, the benchmark for becoming a great player is how do you make the players around you play? Not that there's weak links on these squads because they're all so talented, but how do you bring the players that aren't having a great game into it and get them involved? And she was just doing everything. we were just like looking at each other, because me and Kaz, when we're commentating sometimes, Dave, we write little notes to each other going, wow, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, there's no doubt she's special. And where she goes from here. I mean, how old is she now?
19. I believe she's 19. 20.
So she's right at that, on the cusp now of that next phase. And hopefully, I don't know if you guys know any more about what she's going to be doing next year, but hopefully it's going to be something great.
Yeah, so I know she's not looking at the US route, because I had US coaches reaching out to me about her. So obviously I asked and was obviously informed that that's not the route that she's looking to go down. My algorithm not only assesses what they're doing right now, but it projects the level that they could eventually reach kind of post 25 as a fully developed player. So it assumes a level of growth for every year until they hit the age of 25. And essentially, without going into real specifics of it, I believe that she can perform at a level above the WBBL, if we just say above the WBBL, rather than going into Euro Cup, Euro League, or anything like that.
Yeah.
She can play outside of this country and, play as a legitimate professional player, along the lines of Joey and Temi and the rest of the guys that have played a lot overseas. How high she goes, obviously we'll see once she gets there. But, I believe she's at that level above the WBBL. Whether she goes into WBBL in her first season to kind of just get that first year of senior basketball, because she's played Division 1 women with Solent as opposed to WBBL, like Issy Bunyan and some of the others we'll speak about today. But yeah, I think she's really got that potential. I mean, to be MVP in a senior women's league at under 19 is special. We don't see that often.
But the thing is, as well, is, and you hear a lot of these kids at the moment, and for me, if their aspiration isn't to go to the States, that's okay with me, because there is plenty of other things that they could do. Going and doing 4 years in America isn't for every person, and I felt that in past years there's been a lot of pressure that if you want to succeed in this game, that's kind of what you've got to do. But it's changing. We talk about it on our show with the NBA, and you look at the influence on the NBA and the WNBA that the Europeans are having now. You're sort of going, all right, well, if you're not going to go to the States, there's plenty of money to be made, and there's plenty of opportunities to become great players and earn a living and be great and well known by staying in Europe now. And that's just how the game has evolved.
There's a really big change as a result of Brexit with that as well. That if you go to the States for 4 years, you come out as a British player competing with American import spots in European League. Whereas if you go to Quinn Ellis, if you go to Italy young, you'll get an Italian passport, and then your options are wide open to play as an EU player in Europe. So there's a lot of the smarter kids that are actually realizing that going to America, although it's obviously looks great on your CV, you'll still compete with Americans, because people are classed in the same import as Americans now, and it's completely different how it used to be. When we saw dozens of male players playing in overseas pro leagues.
Well, Kaz, you'll certainly remember Jason Annie from the Magic. Dave, you've probably seen his name come up. Exactly the case for him. I didn't realise that his passport was actually German. So what he's done is he's gone out, and I think he was playing at Bayern Munich or sort of, one of the big clubs out there. And he then doesn't have to worry about this thing that you're just saying there, because, I know kids right now that are dual nationality, American and British, and you used to kind of be able to use that to your advantage, but it really doesn't make any difference anymore. They're all fighting for the same jobs going into Europe because of Brexit. So, exactly what you just said. But if you're taking, it's not like, I wonder if you could wangle it so your passport isn't British anymore. But do you know what I mean, though? It's like it's become an advantage, if in a lot of ways, if you haven't actually got that British passport and you have a European passport.
Definitely. Okay.
While we're on Faye, should we just touch on the couple of other Itchen players that I think you've mentioned? So I think Anna Nevison and Erin Caldwell, the kind of two standout players alongside Faye. Obviously, Itchen had a really successful season. If you guys have seen anything of those two, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts.
So do you remember that Anna Nevison pass, the assist that she had in the tournament? unreal.
Yes, possibly the pass of the weekend. That it was unbelievable. Yeah. Now, Anna, we've seen a few times because she's moved around a little bit. She actually started here at the Mystics, and I remember seeing her play when she was young, and then I think she went over to. Did she go to Ipswich for a while? No, it was Nottingham. I think she went to. Possibly Nottingham or somewhere like that.
I know. Find out one.
But yeah, she's a super talented player. Wherever I've seen her play, she's always come up. But yeah, that pass. I mean, did we ever clip that one, Kaz? I think we might have done. But
I think Ralph.
Yeah,
I saw a lot of it. That
was special.
I'll retweet that out so everyone can see what we're talking about. It was just it was a fake. It was a step through. It was a fantastic pass. And yeah, like you say, and again, Anna's another player, just a real all-round player as well. And on that Solent team, again, almost like a bit of a big three with Erin, Anna, and Faye, working really well together. And you see that, don't you, when you've had players that kind of have that experience, that time together playing in the D1 squad, in the academy leagues. They get to know each other so well.
Well, you could kind of bridge that into what I was going to say is you're starting to notice now that in years gone by, you'd see squads that were good, but they always had that one standout player. Whereas now they come in force, So, you look at Ipswich, for example, and they've got the big two there who came up big. In everything that we've seen them playing, so it's almost like these teams now have more than one huge potential player, and for me that's good because it's what I was going back to before, that they're learning how, because at some point you get to a point where if you've been a superstar throughout your career on your team, you've never played with anybody else at the same level as you, and then you go to college and all of a sudden everybody's on the same level. If anything, it's a good thing for them because they're learning how to coexist with other great players, and it just builds up the fundamentals of being a team basketball player. And we saw that very much with Ipswich, right, Kaz?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Ipswich have done a great job of that. When you look at Liv Forster and Yazmin Edwards, I can jump into those two now. You've got two just prolific scorers there, haven't you, in Yaz Edwards and Liv Forster, and they're able to coexist really well. So for me, Yaz Edwards, she's been fantastic this season. She was the under-18 National Cup MVP back in January, dropped 27 points. And something that sticks out to me, and every time I see Yaz play, and me and Adam are the same, Yaz Edwards sees the ball, she will get that ball. She will race floor to floor to get the ball. She'll throw herself on the floor. I don't know how many times you've seen her diving after loose balls. She is a hustle player, and she is just she can score, she can pass, and you see that link up between her and Liv Forster, and it's just got better and better. And it's something that Liv Forster spoke about when we were at the junior Final Fours. Liv Forster, MVP of the Final Fours game, she was saying how she's so proud of how they worked together and how she's seen Yaz come along, and that they link up again so well together. Yeah,
I mean, I remember seeing Yaz last year going, "Whoa, this kid's going to be good." But this year, she quickly became one of my favourite players on the girls' side because she's just an out-and-out hustler. Like you said, she does it all. And again, like you say, she sees the ball, she's having it wherever it is on the floor. But she also makes great passes. She gets inside beautifully. The way she can split a defense and get to the hole is absolutely incredible. And then what you've got there complementing her is someone on the outside, because we know that the Liv Forster is just a predator from outside the three-point line. And if you give her, she'll take a shot before you even put your hand up to defend it. So when you've got someone that can do that from the outside, and let's face it, Liv will, she's tough, she'll go inside if she needs to. But that combination for me, it's just like it's a one-two punch that everybody needs and wants.
And it's a scary proposition that as well, because they're prolific scorers, aren't they? They score a lot. And when, you know, if you're a team trying to defend that, okay, try shut down Liv Forster, that's right. But then you've got Yaz Edwards on the side, and she's going to make you pay. And they're both players that can shoot from the outside and get inside, you know, and they're so fast, they're so quick in transition. When you get that Ipswich team, getting those rebounds and getting out on the break, they're very, very difficult to stop.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Drainov has done a great job there because he's got so many weapons, and the rest of his team as well have sort of fitted in nicely around it too. They've got a forward, I forget her name now, who works. Yes, thank you, Kaz. Yeah, and she works the socks off as well. So, you know, it's just great seeing this team basketball. I mean, it's always great when you watch a player that stands out on a team, but when you're seeing a team that all stand out together, that's what it's all about.
It is, absolutely. Like you say, you know, Louisa Gibbins playing inside. She was the WEABL Under-17 Player of the Year this year. 11.3 points per game, 7.9 rebounds. But when you watch Louisa, yes, she can score, and yes, she does. But I think she's she doesn't have to score. Again, her presence on defense is so important inside. And watching her at the Four Nations tournament, watching her and Felicia Jacobs being a twin towers for England, that was pretty unstoppable, because her defensive presence, you know, she's one of those players that she puts your shot off. She makes it difficult. You know, it doesn't have to be a block every single time. Just the way she works inside is, you know, it's so difficult, and she makes it really difficult for players.
Yeah, if you want to talk about Louisa Gibbins, you've got to talk about efficiency as well. There are only 5 of this age group players in Division 1 women that achieved higher than 13 efficiency, and she was one of the 5. So she's in elite company with the Faye Endean, Izzy Bunyan, Fatmatah Janneh, and Ebere Egbirika. Apologies if any of those pronunciations are off. It's not my specialty. That's for you commentators.
Oh, we struggle as well. Hey, before every game is a given now, Dave. Kaz always goes down to the bench and makes sure pronunciations are right, and I still get them wrong. But that's a tasty little list right there, though. When you read it out just then.
Yeah, so I think those 5 people are over efficiency. Also, we spoke about Faye, and you know, her numbers across the board are just wild, aren't they? Especially when you look at it in the context of the history of under-19s playing in Division 1 women and how they stack up against the kind of all-time numbers. Like, yeah, you know, Faye's the kind of player that's just should be on everyone's radar.
Absolutely. And then, you know, on Ipswich as well, just to keep on the Ipswich theme, we've got Saruna Gudza as well, just a master passer. You know, not in the WEABL this season, but last year she led in assists per game. And again, you've got players that just complement each other so well. She was part of the Hoops Fix All-Star Classic, as a lot of these players will have been. You know, that happened I want to say a couple of weeks ago. It was probably a month ago now. The summons into on. But Saruna, again, just another fantastic player on the team. 14.1 points per game, 3.8 rebounds, and 4.2 assists. And when you've got someone like her that's a playmaker as well, she's passing the ball. She's got guards and shooters to pass to. When you've got players and you can get it inside to Louisa Gibbins, I mean, it's just you know, what more do you want?
Scary, isn't it?
It is. So should we move on from Ipswich, and we'll have a look at who we have next? Leia Edwards. So Leia.
Yeah, we all take a shot intake of breath. I mean, obviously a little bit tough to talk about because she's played, you know, at US high school for the last 2 or 3 seasons. So, you know, the visibility of her is obviously difficult for us. But when she plays for GB, you just see the reason she's playing in the States and, you know, why she got recruited so early to go over there. Obviously, I believe she plays for Steve Via's program out there, or he certainly was involved at some point. So, you know, he obviously had those connects to snap her up. But yes, just you know when you're seeing someone for GB who's at just that little level above and really stands out.
Yeah, she's a very special player. So again, I saw her playing for England at the Under-18 Four Nations tournament back in April in Cardiff, and she was out in the first game with an injury. And I was speaking to her, doing an interview with her before the second game. And obviously, as much as you're injured, you want to get out on the court. I thought it was really interesting what she had to say about being injured, watching that first game for the team on the sidelines, kind of getting a different perspective, seeing where her teammates are. She's got a very, very high basketball IQ. And I think, when you have a player that's really interested in that side, she's able to appreciate, sort of take a step back, look at the game when she's not able to play, and then adjust how they are playing. And again, she's another player that can just do a bit of everything. She's very, 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 very good inside in getting to the basket, stepping through, just working her way around the defense and just getting to the rim.
Yeah, and I believe from US high school is not my area of expertise, and it's kind of tough to understand and follow, but I'm pretty sure her school won some kind of state championship, national championship, something like that. I'm pretty sure Stevie was posting about it.
Yeah, state championship in 2022. 2022. That was a weird way of saying it. So a huge achievement, and we know how difficult that is out there in the States.
Yeah, because I think I may be more ignorant than some people, but when players get signed to high schools, I just have no concept of where that high school sits in the hierarchy of US high schools. It's just not my world. College, I know a little bit. I can know what conference they're in, and I know for the purpose of the algorithm what tier that conference sits in. But obviously with high school, trying to get stats for high schools a nightmare, and trying to factor them into the algorithm to understand levels and conferences, it just doesn't really work. Or maybe it would if I understood a bit more. I don't know.
Well, I mean, in terms of exposure, if you're winning a state championship at high school, the exposure you're going to get, because a lot of people over here don't necessarily comprehend just how big sport is in the States, but that will have been nationally televised. It'll have been on statewide. Every college coach in the country will have been watching it. So in terms of exposure, if you're on a state winning team, that's huge. And when you look at players like Leia Edwards, you're legitimately looking at the future of GB.
Yeah. If you think about a recruitment perspective from the States, if they're seeing numbers in WABL and Women's Division 1 WBBL, it's very hard for them to gauge what the value of those numbers are, because they don't really understand our leagues and the levels.
Yes.
So they know when a kid plays for GB, okay, you're one of the 12 best kids in that country. I can watch you on YouTube for free across several full games in a tournament that's easy for me to access, and I understand the level of that tournament. So that GB exposure is huge. And then obviously if you're over in the States, then you're in front of them and they understand the level. Again, that's the crucial thing. But that's where I think my algorithm helps, because my levels are very clearly structured and tiered and very easy to explain and be transparent about. So if I'm saying a player is a 3-star player and they can perform as a D1 scholarship athlete or whatever it may be, it's based on some science, and they don't really need to do that kind of research to understand the levels. I'm doing that for them with the algorithm. So that's what I'm really excited about. I think it just really opens a door for US and also European pro recruitment as well. And it'll be less reliant on the personal relationships our academy coaches have developed with coaches in the States. So it's a little bit less who you know, particularly for kids who maybe are at a program that's not as connected, but they're as talented as a player that's at a different program. It's just trying to level the playing field. That's something that speaks to me from a kind of empathy point of view of just wanting things to be fair, and kids getting that opportunity they deserve, not through kind of who you know and fortunate situations and environments.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a fantastic tool, and it's like you say, levels the playing field as well, doesn't it?
And people are more so in the pro level, but then you get some bargains, because there's going to be players in leagues they'd never even think to look at. But my argument is saying, look, I know they're at this level, but they're playing at such a high performance in that level that it balances out to this level, and maybe you can get a bargain, contract, and actually a player really performs. So, I mean, an example on the male side, Jelani Watson-Gale this season, to segue out of female basketball for just 30 seconds as a good example. But, he played at a D2 school, which some BBL clubs would maybe not look to recruit from D2 because it's all about D1. And my algorithm said he would do X, Y, and Z in the BBL. And that's exactly what he did. And he was an absolute breakout star in the BBL. And it made me think, wow, maybe there's something to this algorithm. Back to the women.
Yeah, so yeah, Leia Edwards as well, under 16 Women's National Player of the Year in 2021-22 and 2020-21. So back-to-back under 16 Women's National Player of the Year. Just again, a fantastic young player.
Yeah,
so
I can speak to that briefly, because those National Player of the Year awards is actually something I can take a bit of credit for. I pushed to bring them back. They were kind of dormant for a few years. I found some old records of who had won them, and I was like, this is huge. Like, we need to carry this on and, you know, fill the gap from the past and make those awards happen again. So I was able to kind of put that together internally at Basketball England. And I think it's, you know, we all do competition awards, but that National Player of the Year for an age group, that's huge. Like, imagine having that on your resume and just for your personal kind of reward and achievement.
Yeah, and like, so when you look down that list as well, because the Basketball England published the previous years, didn't they? You know, some of the names that are on there as well. The company that you're keeping, Joe Leedon Warner, you know, just absolute legends of the women's game.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun going through the kind of stats historically, and I had a kind of panel of people that obviously can give more subjectivity and context than myself. And we basically went through and kind of picked them historically, because obviously no one did it at the time, because, you know, things kind of slip and go away. So yeah, I'm quite proud to bring that back, because I think it's really important for the culture. And, you know, if you think about all the awards you can get domestically, that's pretty big, you know.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I'm with you. We need it. We need to have it. Okay, so should we move on to someone else? I'm going to throw Katie Cox out there. So Katie Cox was playing for the Sevenoaks Suns in the WBBL this season. She was with the team. So obviously Sevenoaks Suns won't have a team going into the 22-23 season. So I have to keep an eye on where she'll be. But again, another player that I saw at the under-18 Four Nations tournament. And so the leadership that Katie Cox showed for me on court as one of the younger players in the squad was phenomenal. Like, she was the kind of player that, you know, the team were going down, the other team were going on a run. She got everyone together, you know, in a team huddle doing free throws and things. She's like, okay, let's calm things down. You know, this is what we need to do. Let's try do this and move things around. And I love it when you see that leadership on court, but I don't think I've ever seen it from a player so young, and especially on a team where, you know, there are older players. And she just took, you know, it was just a natural role for her. And I love to see that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point for me personally, because when I say I don't like to speak about these players subjectively in terms of their on-court performance and skill sets and all that, I don't feel that's my strength. Like, I'm not a scout in terms of, I look at their skill sets and what they do on court and project what they can do or whatever, because I'm always more focused on character. I look at those little things, and because I'm a coach, I think I naturally look at those things, because I always see that it doesn't really matter what the skill set and the talent is if the characteristics aren't going to maximize the potential of that skill set and talent. So I always look at them as a kind of a human being first, as just an empath. I think that's partly my character. So I kind of get distracted by looking for those little signs and signals of what they're like as a character and what they bring to a team in terms of that leadership and off court and their attitude and how do they react when the game's not going their way and all those kind of things. And I think because I'm so distracted by that, I don't actually notice the kind of things that, you know, a scout and a recruiter would probably focus more on in terms of their skill set and decision making and the basketball stuff. I get distracted by the human stuff, but I think that's with me.
And I mean, something else we should probably just mention. So not only is Katie Cox playing basketball at a very high level, she's doing it in football as well. So she's a goalkeeper for, is it Chelsea, I believe?
Yeah. I think I football, but I'm pretty sure they did something or won something, or went to a final or Champions League final, like junior version. I don't know. I'm not that close to it.
Yes, she definitely had a trophy. She definitely had a picture of herself with a trophy.
On social media like I do, but don't know the detail.
So just a two-sport player, and again, just a very, very quick player as well. And some of the, you know, the passes that she can make, you know, the awareness she's got on court. Again, just a fantastic
goalkeeper, isn't she? I thought goalkeeper. Yeah. I mean, to play for England junior national team as well in football. I've got a feeling she might, which would be mad to be a two-sport international.
I think she is. She's it's crazy. So I think we may have.
That would be an interesting one in the sense that at some point she's going to have to pick which sport she goes to. And obviously, we don't want to lose her, but obviously, you have to.
It's going to be a loss to whichever one she doesn't pick.
All we can hope is that she makes the best decision for her as a person. We can't be selfish as fans and say we want to keep her as basketball, right? For GB performance, all the rest. But Katie, if you're out there, we'd love for you to play for GB basketball. Even if it's on the side, just a little side gig.
Yeah, just on the weekends. Okay, so let's move on to, I've got Yemisi Mefful, who she plays for the Nottingham Wildcats in the WBBL and also the WEABL. So doesn't get as many minutes in the WBBL, more than the academy player. She was on the all-conference second team in the North Division this season. And she might be a player that maybe, I don't know, she goes under the radar a little bit. But for me, she's one of those players who, if you've heard the term, Adam's just dropped, but if you hear the term, the JLC, the Joe Leadham column, the column, the stat column that we don't have on a stat sheet that just shows what you can do off the ball. It doesn't show up in the stat sheet. You might not be getting the most points, the most rebounds, but you're hustling after the ball and you're making such a difference. And for me, Yemisi Mefful is one of those JLC type players. She does exactly what her team need her to do. It might not be flashy, it might not be fancy, but she's so solid and she's so efficient in just doing what she needs to do, whether it's making that extra pass, chasing the ball, tipping it out to get the steal. She's just a really, really solid, efficient player, and she'll do what the team need her to do to get the win.
Absolutely. And just, if I may touch on that, Jolie, first of all, I love that you guys came up with that. I think it's awesome. And the thing that always struck me when I first started watching women's basketball in the UK, it was through the GB women's team. So that was my kind of introduction to when I was first kind of putting my feet in the water. And I can honestly say Joe Leadham is my favourite player that I've ever watched play basketball. And I don't mean female player. I don't mean specifically British basketball. I just mean all of the basketball I've ever watched in my life, men and female. She just has something that appeals to what I love about basketball. And I think what I value from a coaching perspective and from a fan's perspective. And everything you're saying, but I think I just add to that she has a mentality and a skill set where her value that she adds to that specific game will be dictated by what the situation and the team needs. And I think it's almost like with a boxer or a UFC fighter where they feel it out in the first round and then they completely adjust their game plan and do what they need to do to figure out that particular opponent and that particular situation. And I just think her basketball mind and the versatility of her skill set, that she could kind of play every position and do every role. She just does what she needs to do to help her team win the game. And I think there's no better quality than that in basketball. And in some games, her stats would be completely different to other games because of that, which may be confusing if you look at it from my perspective of just looking at the numbers. I mean, the numbers are always outstanding. Let's be honest, they're never going to be bad. But yeah, that's why she's my favorite player of all time, regardless of level and gender and whatever. She just ticks. Because I think the first time I ever watched her, I kind of sit there in coach mode. And like I say, I'm looking at all these character things. I'm kind of mentally ticking off attributes and characteristics and things that I like. And I kind of got to the end of the game. I was like, I think I've ticked them all in my head. And then I went back and watched it again. I was just like, yeah, like she's incredible.
She is. She's unreal. And I'm so grateful we got to see a season of her in the WBBL.
Tell me about it. Although it will forever irritate me that the media coverage that she should have had and has earned and should have been shown that respect. The season we had her here should have been such a huge opportunity for the BBCs and that, because that story, like what she was to the game, arguably the greatest female player of all time, and you'd have to put forward a pretty strong argument to say she isn't. I just feel like we'll never ever get that opportunity again for her. Obviously, when Holly and these generational talents come along, hopefully the game is in a different place and it goes into the mainstream. But I remember speaking to a really talented journalist who kind of wanted to do a piece on British basketball, was just asking what are the big stories. And I was like, dude, if you'd asked me that 3 months earlier, you would have had like the best story, because what she did in her final year, I know we're supposed to be talking about young players here, but you mentioned her name, I'm going to go off on one. So
I can talk about Joe Leadham all day.
We just need an episode. Actually, we literally need to do an episode recognising her career for like an hour. Get some other people on that are around her career. Yeah, we'll speak about that off camera. But she's earned it. She deserves that respect of being, acknowledged as the greatest female player of all time, arguably, and just her career achievements. But particularly that last year that she came back, she won everything you can win in the WBBL, individually and team. Undefeated, statistics that stood up against any statistics that have ever been performed in the WBBL. It was just like the perfect end. Yeah. I think she just miss out on like a, what was it, 50, 40, 90 or something like that.
She was close.
Yeah, like a 0.1.
Oh, she got it. We're being informed by our producer Darren. She got it. She was 50, 40, 90.
Maybe I just adjusted the stats. No one would ever question my stats, would they? They'd just be like, yeah, they must be right. But I did not, and I never will, just to emphasize that.
So she got that. She got the 50, 40, 90, and Darren Paul would like everyone to know that he commentated that game.
Joy that must be. I'm hoping to dabble in a bit of commentary this coming season because, again, I'm segueing as I always do. But City of Birmingham are going to be in Men's Division 1 this year, so it's the first time I've had a team like fairly near to me that's like high level basketball that I can go and commentate on and offer some kind of insight and knowledge. So kind of excited about that because every time I see you guys commentate, I really want to commentate. And I spoke to BE as well about maybe some of their events because also I work for BE. I can maybe sit along the side of the likes of you and actually kind of commentate on some of the big finals and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to. It's
a really fun thing to do.
Yeah, 100%. Best seat in the house, right?
Definitely. Okay, so moving on to Joe Vourliotis playing for the Manchester Mystics in the WBBL. Also for the Manchester Mystics in the WEABL. She had 8.1 points per game, 7.1 rebounds, 2.4 assists, was in the all-conference second team in the North. And again, another player that's represented England at the under-18 Four Nations and GB under-17s last year. She is heading over to Kansas, to Cowley College in Kansas. That's a JUCO college. And Joe, I mean, she's a shooter. Joe Vourliotis is a shooter. She went off at the junior Final Fours from the three-point range. She's just a lights-out, knockdown shooter. And she's very versatile. So she plays for several different teams in Manchester. As I said, the WBBL, Academy and under-18s. And she's playing different positions in each of them. Which I think is a very difficult thing to do, to be able to switch between them. But I think she does it very well. And, again, like, she is a shooter. She is a fantastic shooter, and she's only going to keep getting better.
Okay, so I've got to jump on here because I'm calling it the most underrated player in the country on the female side. I don't know if I can say it across both. Isobel Robinson at the same Manchester program.
Yes.
Not nearly enough homegrown hype. Just her numbers, and obviously I'm always most intrigued by the under-17s because that first year they're playing academy basketball and playing up in seniors. That's usually when they kind of come into my domain of, I've got statistics now. I can actually start to evaluate your kind of level and understand what the kind of talent level is and the expectation for where you might go. And it's just like, she just came out of nowhere. Like, maybe I'm ignorant. I did not know her name prior to this season. And then she just came out and just blew up. Like, just went wild, like 25 points in WABL. That does not happen very often.
No, and she had some big individual games as well in the WABL. I think she had I want to say a couple of 30-point games.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm trying to think, because I did a bit of content with a collaboration with Basketball England about, I think I could be wrong, I can't remember. I think there were 4 players that scored over 25 points in the history of the WABL. So I'm assuming she was one of them, but my memory's a little bit sketchy on that.
I saw that recently. I can picture the graphics. But
I'm just going to run the actual stats to see if I'm talking nonsense or not.
And so Isobel, as we said, WEABL North MVP, all conference first team in the North, and under 17 young player of the year in the North.
Yeah. So that's that piece that went out with Basketball England maybe this week or last week. So 3 players this year scored over 25 points in the WEABL, and only one other player in the entire history of WEABL has done that, who was Holly Winterburn. So, it was Isobel Robinson as an under 17, particularly impressive, and then Alex Shaw and Erin Powell, both teammates at Charnwood, who obviously just ate on that team and got order points. So yeah, I mean that's what I love about the fact that I have the whole history of stats, that it's very easy to look at a singular season and say, okay, these are the top performers compared to each other. But when you bring in the historical context and say, you know what, this player did something that only 3 other players have ever done, it really puts it in a different light and helps you kind of understand how significant some of these numbers are, because context is everything.
Absolutely, yeah. And being able, like you say, being able to see that, it's just it's so valuable, to have that. Okay, so moving on, let's keep it with Manchester, and I'll go for Daisy Bryan, who was playing for the D2 Mystics and the WEABL Mystics as well. Now, she was the Defensive Player of the Year in the North Division in the Academy League in the WEABL. And again, so Daisy, a player that, she's not a prolific scorer, she can score, but what she does off the ball and, puts the pressure on teams defensively is so valuable to teams that she plays on. And I always think you don't always, as we just mentioned before with Yemisi, those players don't always get recognised, do they? Because, you aren't the highest scorer, you aren't the highest rebounder, although she was averaging 10.9 rebounds this season. But her work, again, off the ball, pressure in the defense, getting into the passing lanes, again, another player that is so quick and so fast in transition, able to get the steal, get out up the court and drop the ball in, or pass it out to someone further ahead. She's a very crucial player to teams that she's on.
And I was so glad that the stats on my website matched the stats that you said. You're a little bit nervous when the profile comes up. It's great what Nat's doing with the production on this, getting the profiles up. But yeah, I mean, this is a good case point for this. That, like, obviously, there's a lot of players that are sort of on my radar based on what they've done in prior seasons, and then those that are maybe not. And then, of course, there's a certain point of the season around December where we've got enough stats, because I don't really care what someone's done over like 2 games, because they might have been against like the bottom teams in the league and stuff like that. Like, I'm a stat guy, so it's about sample size and the meaningful stats and all that kind of thing. So by December, that's when I'm kind of looking at, okay, so whose numbers mean they're now on my radar based on what they've done this season, even if they've maybe not been on the radar before. And obviously Isobel, as an under 17, I've not been aware of. And then Daisy as well, I've kind of obviously seen the name in the stats, but she hadn't quite kind of got on my radar. And then when I run the numbers, obviously completely objectively, and you see who's sort of above this line and who's above this line, you're like, oh, okay. And then I get excited because, it's not like I get tired of sort of doing content on the same players, but obviously it's quite exciting for me when a new player kind of emerges into my kind of content recruitment exposure world, because it's like a new player that I can now go and watch and find out a little bit more about and start asking around my network to find out a bit more and get that insight. So yeah, it's always quite exciting for me when the new names come on, particularly in the under 17s, because with no stats being available sort of for the younger age groups, it's only really GB under 16 teams that I can kind of have a little look at, and you never quite know, what's going to happen after they play for GB under 16s. So yeah, that's the age group. It's always really exciting each year, and it kind of takes me a few months. You might see a few really high scoring games and stuff like that in the early months, October, November, but December is when I kind of have the time, because you've got a bit of time off over Christmas as well, so I can kind of sit down and really dig into the stats and be like, who are these new names that I should have known about and I don't, and now I can kind of start giving the homegrown hype to.
Yes, and it's similar for me. It's always exciting when I'm commentating a game or watching a game, and there's maybe a name you might have heard of, or again, like someone you haven't heard of, they have a game and you're like, wow, this is definitely someone to watch. And like you say, when you come to around that December time, you get the finals and things, you tend to, I first saw Kohler, I think probably 2 years ago, and I think I've seen them in pretty much every final I've been to since. And you get to get so familiar with them, and it's very exciting. If I go back 2 years and think, it was watching Emily O'Connell, that was what's she going to be doing? It's always fun finding a new player to watch.
And you get really quite attached to them, don't you? So I think when I came into British basketball 14-15 season, that was like the first debut in basketball season, if you like. So there's players that were kind of emerging as junior players at that time that were initially on my radar. And of course, now they're really starting to get into that established professional world how many years is that? That's nearly 10 years, isn't it? So if they were like 16-ish then, they're now 26. So post 25 is where I always look at, now it's not about what you could be, it's just about what you are, and you're going to be judged on what you produce. Everyone under the age of 25 always has a bit of kind of growth and potential and might get signed based on that. But it's almost like as soon as you hit 25, it's like, okay, now you've got to produce. It's not about what you could be anymore. So that's where it kind of gets really interesting seeing the kind of trajectory of people's careers and where they're going to land. So, someone like a Carl Weeksall, he's around that kind of 25-ish age. So, I've literally followed his entire career from, I think he went to Italy like 14 or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot of players that I'm really quite kind of attached to and have seen quite, especially Carl Weeksall, because he's played GB like every summer ever and always been a standout. So yeah, there's certain players that the longer you watch them, and watch someone for 10 years is quite a thing, isn't it? And
it is, yeah.
Real affinity to them. And also sometimes that's a challenge for kind of fandom in British basketball, that I put out a tweet the other day about how great it is that London Lions women are signing the top homegrown hype players, because it means the casual WBBL fans will watch those players, have an affinity to them, because I'm now watching them every week. The WBBL is very accessible on YouTube. I don't have to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And I can now decide, well, I really like Charity Green and Temi Fat-Bentley. So Temi's a great example. She's played basically her entire career overseas, because obviously she's a EuroLeague level player, so she should. Hopefully one day, Lions are in EuroLeague. That'd be great. But there's probably a lot of casual fans that maybe are focused on the WBBL that don't really have a connection to Temi, because they don't watch her every week in the league that they know and understand, and the team they follow, and maybe go and watch live. So then when they watch her for GB, they'll understand, well, if they choose to watch GB, because that's part of the conversation that I'm kind of leaning to, that you always, if you don't know any of the players that play for GB, you have to just have that, I want to watch my national team because it's my national team. Whereas if it's, well, I know all these players because I watch them in WBBL, then that might be a different decision for some people who wouldn't naturally just watch the national teams. Like, well, some of the players from my team that I go and watch live every week play for GB. So I'm now definitely paying 20 quid for GB TV to watch GB play because of the connection, the affinity. So I think that's such a powerful thing. And obviously I'm not saying these players shouldn't play in overseas, because you do what's right for your career and you play at the level that you've got the right to play at because of your talent. But obviously, as a fan perspective, we want them all here. We want them in our league so we can watch them. And obviously, the fact that Lions can offer Euro Cup basketball means those players that are a level above our domestic league can come and play here and still perform at the level they should be. And that's what's so important for our homegrown players, that they can play at home, but not be limited to the kind of reputation of those domestic leagues when it comes to their CV and getting the next pro opportunity. When you can put Euro Cup on there, okay, you played in the UK, which, some people have certain opinions on, but you played in Euro Cup, they know what that level is, right? So obviously we would love them to push for EuroLeague, and hopefully that happens in time if, budgets and growth and everything work out. But yeah, I just think it's, some people don't like that Lions are so dominant in our domestic leagues, but the big picture of it for our players is they get to play at home in front of their families often, in maybe their hometown. Yeah. That's huge on a very personal human level. But also they get that on their CV and can prove it. Some of the younger players that would not get anywhere near a Euro Cup roster overseas can be added and supplemented and get some minutes there. That's huge. And like I say, having that affinity to the players, so that when the national team comes around, people want to pay money to watch the national team, which is obviously absolutely vital in terms of improving our preparation and what hotel they stay in, and all those factors where money is a big factor in performance. So that's what I just wanted to really acknowledge London Lions. It's like, I see what you're doing, I see the importance of it, so keep doing it, please, because it's huge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Everything, totally on point. Especially we just had Eurobasket last week, a couple of weeks ago, depending when we put this out. And the importance of having players on the national team that are going to be able to play together as well, week in, week out. That's just only going to help. Yeah,
I mean, old school football reference, but when half the England men's football team was the Man United squad, the synergy and the chemistry in the team is obviously going to benefit from that. So, if half the GB team are London Lions players, that can only help us, that you haven't got that adjustment period. Okay, in a tournament, it's going to take us a game and a half to kind of find our rhythm and our chemistry. That's practically how the GB team playing for Lions, if they wanted to go that way. But it's just, it ticks so many boxes in terms of the big picture and where we want our sport to go. And obviously it's all down to money. Investment has come into the line to allow this opportunity to come, and so much of it is all around finances, but there's also the decisions you make with that finance. They're clearly making a commitment to homegrown players, and obviously as Mr. Homegrown Hype, I'm going to absolutely salute that and appreciate it.
Definitely. So let's go back to Emily O'Connell playing for the City of London Academy, Cola. So Emily, I mentioned this. I saw her play first the National Cup under 18s in 2022 when Cola won. She was the MVP of that game. She was the WEABL South All Conference first team, and she was 10th in points per game in that league. Now, for me, Emily O'Connell is the kind of player that you want on your team when you're losing, when you're having a bit of a panic. And the team, not that Cola lose a lot, but when you're on a bit of a wobble, Emily O'Connell is a player that's going to go, wait, chill out. We've got this. We've been here before. We know what to do. In the game against Itchin in the WEABL final, she was maybe one of the more experienced players on that team. The thing that really stuck out for me was just her level-headedness and her ability to slow the game down, get Cola back into the position they wanted to be, to hold on to a lead. I think Itchin came within 2 or 3 points after Cola had a rather large lead. And I remember afterwards the coaching staff, credited Emily with being able to keep a level head, keep the composure. She's a real all-round player, and again, she's not one of these players that will score 20 points a game. She can if she needs to. But she's a real all-round player, a great playmaker, and gets the rest of her team involved.
Yeah, she's actually one of the players I've seen more of the most, because she's a third-year academy player, and Cola in every final ever. More women in WABL, seemingly. Shout out to Jackson Gibbons and that program. It's outstanding. They're a credit to British basketball. Can't say enough good things about that program, because the feel that I always get just from kind of social media, I'm not that close to it, but I always feel like their program, and maybe Jackson in particular, is about the human first and the player second. I think, they develop their players to be great humans that are going to go on and have great careers, regardless of whether that's a basketball career or a career outside of professionals, and just build a life, because I think they just give them that kind of focus, and, they're interested in the characteristics and, helping them grow as people first. And obviously, like I mentioned before, the better you are in terms of your characteristics and all that human side, the more you're going to maximize your basketball talent. So it's great to see programs that place an emphasis on that. And I was just checking my memory serves correctly, and Emily has signed with St. Peter's.
Yes.
Alongside Carrasco, Mayor Hyacinth, I'm not sure how you say it, that's transferring. And of course, who coaches St. Peter's? Joe Leadham and Jen Leadham? Or the other Leadham? Yeah. I'm confused. There's 3 Leadhams, isn't there? But yeah, so Joe Leadham and Jen Leadham are the coaching staff there. So that's just a beautiful thing to see, isn't it? That, she's retired, she's gone into a coaching program in the States, and she's now, along with her sister, obviously, bringing those opportunities for some of the top talent. So that's just really cool, because it's such a connection. So we probably should have checked in on some of the commitments. I think we missed Anna Nevison signed in D2. We covered Joe, who's signed in JUCO.
Anna Nevison's going to the University of Alaska, Fairbanks.
Yeah, I think there's a few I'm probably not quite up to date on, because there's a lot of signings that go on and I only have limited free time. But yeah, it's obviously awesome to see them getting those scholarship offers and going to the next level. And if we're touching on Cola, then we absolutely have to speak about Isi Ozzy-Momodu.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, like myself, you've not seen her playing in JUCO, but obviously we saw a lot of her prior to going to the States. So she's one of those players who played first year in the States. And this is where my algorithm really helps me, because I don't know college basketball that well. So when you're looking at numbers, and generally speaking, our players' numbers in US college at whatever level don't tend to look that sexy. It might be a 10 points and a 5 rebounds or something like that. And most people, casual, kind of shrug their shoulders at that. It doesn't sound amazing. But the context of the level and the way stats are generally quite spread across US college rosters, because it's a bunch of kids all trying to get to the next level. It's not like the NBA where it's like, you're the stars, you're the role player, you're the whatever. you know, the stats do tend to be quite balanced apart from, you know, the real standout players at certain programs. But when I put in Isi's numbers into the algorithm and then applied what I'd learned about the level of JUCO compared to sort of D1 and D2, which is a little hard to place. Yeah, like what we thought she was when she was in the UK, yeah, she's that in the States. Like she's going to get, I'm assuming, a pretty high level D1 offer coming out of JUCO doing the numbers. So to give it a little bit of context that I have, because college basketball is not my world. So 10.6 points, 9.5 rebounds. Anyone who saw her play knows she's getting you 10 rebounds or close enough any game, any level. But the real standout is her team had a 0.971 win percentage, as our excellent producer will show us here. So that's what I'm saying about understanding level, that it's a good JUCO program and they won basically every game pretty much. So I don't know what the actual record was. I'm assuming, have I got it here? No. So yeah, I'm assuming they maybe lost one.
Well, it looks like a 1%.
Yeah. So, and then of course, hopefully he's got the career history up. Well, that's a lot of pretty good win percentages for Cola, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if I'm a recruiter, that's one of the number one things I'm looking at. Is I look at win percentage first and then decide if it's worth my time looking at the rest of the numbers. Because if you're not from a winning program, a lot of recruiters will just immediately dismiss that because they want winners. You know, it's pretty sensible.
Yeah. So and staying with Cola as well, Violet Stutz, another knockdown 3-point shooter. She was 10th in 3-point percentage in the WEABL this season, 31%. And again, representing GB at under 16, England under 18s. She was at the Four Nations tournament as well. And yeah, a really a dangerous shooter, because when she gets going from the outside, she makes it incredibly difficult for other teams.
Yeah, again, I think she's one that's maybe a little bit slept on. I don't think she kind of has had kind of the coverage and exposure that she's maybe earned from her performances, or she played GB. So anyone with that GB jersey in the profile picture on my website, that's a pretty easy sign that, you know, they're of a certain standard. And I think what I'd like to touch on as well is I always find it really fascinating to see, okay, we know what academy they're at. And it's when they're in those academic years that they tend to be on everyone's radar, because obviously you've got the stats, you've got the exposure, the content, the video that comes with the academy leagues. But I always look at where did they play before academy basketball, that kind of under 16, under 15, etc. level, and seeing which clubs appear most frequently when you're looking across this list of talented players and you're saying, well, where did these all come from before they hit the academies for those extra years of development? And Richmond Knights kind of really stand out, particularly with having that connection with Cola. There seems to be a lot of players that go Richmond Cola. So you just kind of want to shout out Richmond Knights because their kind of production line of talent has been pretty incredible in the last few years, particularly when he's talking about people like Michael Bell, again, to drift into male basketball. But what he's done going and played Champions League basketball with Strasbourg and now signing for a big D1 program, like Richmond Knights are producing serious talent, and it's great to see it's male and female. You know, a lot of programs tend to, you know, maybe produce more on one side or the other, and Richmond doing both is obviously just really, really impressive as a program. So shout out to them.
Yeah, I mean, Katie Cox, I believe, came through Richmond as well. And
a lot we could list.
Niamh Raguet and Chloe Vella at the moment, under 16s. They were.
Yeah, these are the agents I don't know too much about. Just that I know Niamh Raguet and her brother as well. It was funny actually, because I think I went to the Aspire All-Star game not really knowing any kind of names or players, because I was working it as part of my BE role. And I sat and just happened to the court that I was working on. I was watching a game. I was just like, Jesus, like this next level. And I turned around to someone. I was like, do you know the name of this kid? No. Do you know this kid? I found someone who eventually knew his name, and they told me it's Tajan Raguet. And I was like, I've actually heard of that name, because he's been on social media even when he was like 13, 14. It was already getting some hype. And obviously I tend to be across everything on social. So I pick up some of the names, but obviously sometimes you never quite know whether it's just a program that's very active on social media, and way more talented players that don't get exposure because they just don't have the staff to do social media. So you can never trust social media too much in terms of what hype comes out, but there's certain names where you see, you know, okay, there's something there, and that I'm starting to become aware of them. And it actually gave me quite a bit of validity that, maybe I can actually spot players without the staff. Right, that I just watched for about 30 seconds. I was like, that kid looks like he's above the level of the rest of them. Who is he? And I was like, oh, that's the name that everyone's talking about. So maybe I know a little bit about basketball. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. Well, I saw Chloe Vella at the Final Four playing under 16s, and I was like, yeah, that's a really good 16-year-old. She's 14. I was like, wow. When I found out she was 14, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew there was a way to get kind of data, even if we didn't have stats, just knowing the age of players that are playing up.
Yeah.
Winning programs and stuff like that, just so I'd know, okay, well, if you're playing up on a winning program, then, and you're playing obviously like minutes and your starter, maybe something like that, even without stats, they're of a level and someone to look. And what I'd really like to know is everyone in the country who's like 6'7" plus male and 6 foot plus female, because as I've spoken on different podcasts, it's just a different recruitment market. You're not in the same job market as people below those heights, and you're just immediately more recruitable because there's less human beings in the world of that height. So, if you're an American recruiter, you can get 100 6'1" guards on your doorstep that can do largely what most of the UK guards without being unkind to anyone. You really have to be a standout player for the US to go outside of the US to get a 6'1" guard from outside, because they don't need to. There's just so many of them there.
Yeah.
It's supply and demand. Whereas, of course, they can't do that with 6'7" plus players. There's not as many of those size human beings. So they do recruit outside of the US because obviously all these other countries have a lot of humans and some of them are 6'7" plus. So it's just a literal supply and demand kind of logical thing. And I do think it's probably quite hard for some kids to understand sometimes that they may perceive themselves as really outperforming and being further ahead in their development, maybe even playing at a higher level as a 6'3" guard, say, than a 6'8" forward. And they'll be like, oh, why is the 6'8" forward who's maybe at my program getting all this scholarship interest? I'm not, because I'm actually outperforming him by every metric that I understand. And it's just like, yeah, but you're just not as tall. And it puts you, you're not being recruited for the same job, because you think about positions in basketball and balance of rosters and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think it's tough sometimes for kids who might be like number 2 or number 3 guard in the country, but they're not getting recruited over some of the big kids. And the same with athleticism as well. If you've got standout athleticism, that's another intangible that can't be taught, the same as height can't be taught. You teach people how to play basketball, but if they've got those physical advantages, it immediately makes them more recruitable.
Absolutely, yeah. It's tough though, isn't it? When you explain it like that, it makes sense, but it's tough to be in the position of you can't make yourself tall.
Probably feels quite unfair at times.
Okay, so let's move on to Charli Wroe, playing for the WBBL Sheffield Hatters. So last season was in Manchester, had some time with the Manchester Met Mystics in the WBBL, and also the Division 2 Mystics, making a move over to Sheffield. And she has been getting some steady minutes in the WBBL this season, around 16 minutes a game. I have to remember them in my head. They're there.
Yeah. And like I say, that minutes on a good team. Sometimes if you're a losing team, okay, you can afford to give away some minutes to developing players because it's maybe not going to affect whether you make the playoffs or win the championship. But if you're getting 16, 17 minutes a game on a Hatters team, where, if you don't perform and contribute, that's going to affect the Hatters playoff position and whether they maybe make a push for the title, how far they get in the playoffs, all the rest of it. You're earning those minutes, and that's another kind of key context of win percentage, particularly at the senior level, because they're not going to give away minutes to junior players if it costs them a playoff place or a championship, right? That's just the logic of people, It's the priority. We think about the NBA, the teams that tank when they know they're not going to make the playoffs, then okay, their rosters and rotations are different, and it's no different in any senior league. So I think it's always worth noting that those minutes are valuable, they're earned and that they mean something.
Yeah, absolutely. And, she makes an impact when she's on the court. She's obviously you move up a level, don't you? So coming from D2 or playing a few minutes for the Mystics the season before, but she makes an impact when she's on the court. She's so Charli Wroe is a guard. She's a very, very fast guard. And again, she's a shooter. But for me, my favorite thing to watch about Charli Wroe is the way she gets to the basket. And if anyone's ever heard talk about her on a game or on commentary, they'll be sick of it by now, but Charli Wroe's footwork is exceptional. The way she Euro steps through, gets to the basket, it's fundamentally sound, and it's so good, and she does it so so well that, you know, if she's going to the basket, she's going to drop in the ball in the net, or she's going to get fouled on the way and you're going to send her to the free throw line. And she's so quick, so she's so difficult to stop.
Yeah, that's like, this is so much fun for me, just getting this kind of context from the people who've just seen so much more of these players than me. And, you know, without bigging you up too much and making you embarrassed, like, I love your commentary. It always adds a lot of stuff that I don't know. And, you know, it's really helpful for me to get that kind of insight, because I obviously want to watch more basketball and I want to really get to know these players on a eye test level. But, you know, it's just time for me. As I'm sure people can probably appreciate seeing what I do with Dave over basketball. Time is a problem.
Yes, it is, and there's so much to watch, isn't there? It's probably impossible to try and watch everything that you do want to. I think
the thing for me as well is, when I watch basketball, I want it to be a kind of relaxing thing that I do in my free time. Whereas if I watch British basketball, I'm in kind of coach mode, analyst mode, Dave and basketball. Oh, they got a profile on my website. I need to pick them up. I need to put some content up. And then my brain starts going. That's the opposite of what I want to do when I'm having some downtime. Yeah. I need to switch my brain off. That's something I've learned in recent times, because I'm not very good at it.
No, it is a challenge. I'm the same.
And if you get really, like, if I'm watching a random like drama TV show series or whatever, it's just a relaxing kind of switch off thing. But obviously, and if I kind of watch the NBA, it's like that. I don't particularly care who wins or whatever. But when I'm watching British basketball, I feel very attached to a lot of the players, and I'm invested in their success, and I want them to play well. You know, I'm jumping up if they do something amazing, because they're players I really want to see succeed and perform well. And, you know, maybe this is the game that gets them a scholarship look because they do something special. And that's not relaxing. No.
And that's something, you know, I found really exciting about, obviously, some of the players in Manchester I've seen throughout the years, you know, in the junior teams. Then when I see them get their debuts for the Mystics in the WBBL, or, you know, even Liv Forster moving from Manchester down to Ipswich and stuff, when they have like big games, it's always so exciting. You're just rooting for them. And we've got a player up here, Maisie Keys. She's under 16, but she made her debut in the WBBL, you know, and got her first free throw one game, her first field goal the next, you know, had a real impact in a couple of really tough games. And it's just, for me, as because I imagine you're the same as me, Dave, you're a fan of basketball, and it's fun to watch these players, and I love to watch them. And, you know, it's exciting. You are sat there cheering, going, yes, Joe, knock down that three. Obviously being very neutral when I'm commentating, but it's you know, as a fan to sit and watch, it's so fun, it's so exciting.
Yeah, and I always think from that kind of fan perspective, most people are more invested when it's a young player. Like, so I've made a conscious decision now that, because of my time constraints, and I've tried to be everything to everyone, I think, with Dave Owen basketball, and it's kind of had an impact on my well-being and life balance. So I've kind of reviewed that over the last kind of year, I guess. And I've really focused in now that the purpose of my platform and the time that I invest is going to be specifically for kind of under 17 to under 25 age group, because those are the players where, if I put up a little bit of time and give them some profile and exposure, it might make a difference in the next level they get to.
Yeah.
Whereas, as I say, once you're 25, well, you're really kind of responsible for your own performance, and you'll be judged upon it. And so the line that I call it is, under 25 is exposure content. 25 plus is recognition content. So I'm recognizing the level you've got to and the level you're performing at. And I still desperately want to do that for, you know, those high level players. But I think with the time limitation I have and the prioritization I need to make for my own well-being, I have to focus in on the players where it's going to be most impactful, because it's almost a nice to have. It's nice to be recognized, but the level you're at and the fact that you're a legitimate pro is almost the reward in itself. Whereas with younger players, it's like, well, if I can help them a little bit by getting there, you know, I think that's more impactful. But I do struggle with it because I want to do everything for everyone, but I can't, because it's not my job. You know, back in England is 40 hours a week. I want to have a life, so many hours I can give to Dave Owen basketball, and that's the challenge I always face. I think that it's such a passion project, but the limitation of how much time I can put in without sacrificing, you know, my own kind of health is tough.
It's a balance, and I think you can see there that Darren, while you were talking before, Darren was showing some of the testimonials on the website, and I know there are hundreds of people out there that find it such an important tool. Myself, when I'm getting my stats, that's where I'm going to get my stats for the commentary. So it's you know, people love it, people appreciate it. We appreciate you, Dave, but you need, it's hard to find the balance, isn't it?
Well, the grand plan now, because I've never been commercially minded, you know, Dave Owen basketball's a not-for-profit. It's not there there to make money, and it's never going to. It's the Wikipedia thing. It's if you value it, you donate, but it's your choice. I'm not going to charge everyone to access it because that defeats the purpose of making our talent as easy to find as possible. A US recruiter is not going to pay me to view those profiles, so I have to make them as accessible as possible for the whole purpose of the website, which is exposure and recruitment. But obviously at the same time, it has to be sustainable, whatever. So accepting that kind of is what it is as a not-for-profit that doesn't generate nothing. Because my eventual goal is to pay someone to maintain it for me. Like that's where I need to get to, because I can't give the time I'm giving it to it for 50 years. It's just not realistic in terms of my life goals and priorities to be that stretched. I know how stretched I am now. Do I want to be that stretched for the next 50 years? No. Do I want to shut it down? I really, really don't. So I have to find a way that I can pay someone part-time to maintain it. So they earn money. It's a legit thing. It's not asking someone to do you a favor. And I'm hoping that the vehicle that's going to allow me to do that is my new algorithm, which is going to be a commercial venture with the goal of making as much money as possible. So because I've got an investor and now that's now starting to move, and because I'm not looking to make more money than I need from it, he's not either. It's about making enough money to have a business that runs and is running optimally. And then all the additional profit is not going to be going to us as kind of directors or whatever. It's going to go into British basketball. And that's the dream that I have, that, if this makes millions and goes huge and it becomes this global rating service that everyone uses, the NBA, EuroLeague, NCAA, everyone's using it because it works and it's proven to be credible based on the early testing. And we've got a few people kind of already getting involved, and I think we'll have some pretty strong testimonials to kind of sell to people. It's extremely valuable. If you can literally get an objective view that projects a level a player can be successful at, you could almost call it priceless, because it doesn't exist. It's not possible. All of sports recruitment is based on subjectivity, a person's opinion. And as a recruiter, you sometimes have to trust someone else's opinion to recommend you a player that you then look at and still make your own kind of assessment on. But the objectivity of it is huge, and the scale of it is huge, that I can take any player at any level, anywhere in the world, at any age, and it's globally applicable. I can just click a button and the algorithm says those numbers mean this. It's like a translation service. It tells you what the numbers mean. And the hope is that that can make enough money that I can essentially sponsor myself. I can sponsor Dave Owen Basketball with this other company and then pay people to take Dave Owen Basketball off my hands. Obviously, I'd stay on as overview strategic lead on it, but light touch, minimum time investment. And then, I can effectively give people jobs, to run Dave Owen Basketball, which would be cool. I think there's enough to do that. So, that'd be really cool to be able to actually create basketball jobs within British basketball, even if, it's on a part-time basis. Dave Owen Basketball's not going to become some huge project. It is a not-for-profit, but, you can maybe, because the way it's split down, because I've had to sit down and work out the hours. Obviously, I've got the technical side, which is not me. That's my best mate that splits whatever donations we get 50-50. And then I am basically 4 people. So I'm the CEO doing the strategic lead stuff. I'm the bottom level data admin guy that just has to do the boring data crunching to get it up to date and do all that. I'm kind of the database manager in terms of who gets profile, creating those profiles and being across social media to know what's going on and who's getting signed and all that kind of business. And then I'm the social media guy as well. Like I have to put out content and promote the website to try and attract those donations to make it sustainable. So I'm effectively doing 4 jobs in my free time. And that's why I'm saying how tough it is and how I need to become more focused. But that's maybe 1 full-time job if someone wanted to take it on completely, or 4 part-time jobs for people who want to kind of dabble in it, because it's probably not going to be big money, or it depends on how much money the business earns. But so that's the kind of dream that would put me in the place where I want to be in my life, where I've basically got these 2 amazing things making basketball better for the world, but I'm putting very little time into it and I'm getting enough income to live comfortably. That's where I want to get to. And then the dream beyond that is, if it's literally bringing in millions and the money is there, then I can start going to Basketball England and the BBF and saying, do you want 5 million a year? Yeah. If you've got it, like, because it's not a not-for-profit in the sense of that, but it is a business, but it's not a business where there's greedy board members and directors that are just going to take all that money and go live on a yacht. We take what we need to live comfortably, and then anything beyond that we give back to British basketball. And try and make it what we all know it can be if it's got that, that money behind. And, the place it has to go is the BBF and Basketball England. Let's get the national team sorted, let's get the grassroots sorted, and everything in between will kind of sort itself out. So that's the dream, that's the legacy I want to leave on British basketball. I've got a clear vision of how I'm going to do it. The conversation I've had around the commercial potential of the new business are suggesting that's not unrealistic, that it could generate that kind of level of income and go crazy. Obviously, we haven't done anything. We haven't earned a pound yet, but the potential is there. The fact that an investor has come in tells me, he's risky. It's all his risk. I'm not putting any money into it. I'm just putting my time. It's my intellectual property. So the fact that he's come in and invested with no kind of persuasion from me tells me I've got value. I've tested it and spoken about a lot of coaches and a lot of different people in a lot of different areas, and I get more and more excited about just how big this could be, and then have to calm myself down because nothing's happened yet. But yeah, it's really exciting. I think, particularly when you think about the women's game, because we know in general British basketball has a problem with money and investment, but the women's game in particular, I would almost lean it 60-40, 70-30 or something like that to try and balance the scales a little bit and get the WBBL a lot closer to the level of the BBL in terms of offering legitimate professional contracts and stuff like that. So, if you can generate that resource, and what I like about it is that because it will be a global service, the income will come from outside of British basketball. So I can go to Spain and Italy and Germany and the NBA and whatever. I've created a service that they will pay for, and then that money can go into British basketball. Whereas if I was taking it from only British basketball clubs and recruiters, I'm taking from British basketball and then giving it back. But obviously, we live in this bubble where fans pay to watch basketball. That money predominantly goes on American imports to play in our leagues. And then we're just in a cycle where we never kind of actually get any money to do anything else. So if we can generate external income, then it just completely changes the structure of British basketball and how we can solve all of these long-standing problems.
I mean, that's the key, isn't it, as well?
I've got a plan. We've just got to make it happen.
It's a fantastic plan. I'm 100% behind it. I think it's I think it's absolutely brilliant that you've come up with this, and not just all the work that you do. And I mean that vision, I'm sure like everybody that supports British basketball wants to see that happen. That's like
the media as well. If we're growing the game with all this investment and everything's better, then I need to be talking to HoopsFix and you guys and all the other great guys that put in so much time for so little back, just for the love of the game, and say, I can help you out maybe a little bit in terms of you raising your game, because if you've got money, you've got income, you've got time, haven't you?
Yeah.
You guys face the same challenge as me. Sammy, I literally don't know how that guy does it. But, we're all trying to do something out of passion and love, not out of income generation. Mm-hmm. It's difficult. There's only so much you can ever do as a volunteer without sacrificing, your own health and life balance.
Exactly. Yeah. You balance it. You're just doing 2 full-time jobs, essentially,
For sure. And obviously now I've got my full-time job at Basketball England, Dave Owen Basketball, which is 4 jobs. And I've just started a new business. So, yeah. Good luck,
So if people do want to support you at the moment, I know you hate doing this, having a plug, but where do they sign up on Dave Owen Basketball? How do they go about supporting you?
Yeah, so if you go to www.daveowenbasketball.co.uk, it will flash up. You won't be able to avoid it. Sorry, you will get pop-ups asking you to support. Obviously, if you've got ad block or something like that, please turn it off. But you can always just go to the supporters tab. There's the pop-up there everyone should see, asking you very politely and kindly if you would mind donating. And like I say, it can't go on forever as a kind of thing that I just do out of love. Like, it has to find a way to be sustainable to stay around, because, if I had to shut it down, which I would have to do at some point if things don't kind of change in terms of donations or this other company, like, I can't carry on with the current thing in terms of life balance and stuff. I just can't. It's just not realistic. So yeah, obviously it'd be fantastic if people donate, but at the same time, if you can afford to donate. If you can't, do not. I don't want your life balance to suffer because you're paid out on my website. So there's always that kind of balance. But ultimately, you can literally pay £1 a month to support it. And my hope when I started this, and without moaning, it's not got to the level that I hoped it would. My hope was that rather than having like 30 people paying £5 to £10 a month, have like 1,000 people paying £1 a month, because it makes no difference to them. But 1,000 people together doing that, okay, now we can really start to talk about me possibly getting someone in part-time and throwing enough money at them to persuade them to do it. So, as I say, I'm extremely grateful for all of the names that are on the supporters page, because it still amazes me that anyone's actually willing to put their hand in their pocket and support what I do. Like it truly means a lot to me. But at the same time, it's not enough. And that's, like I say, it's a hard thing to say, but it isn't. It's the time I put into it and the donations that come in. And obviously, my best mate, who gets no credit for all the work he does, he puts in actually more hours than me, I think, some weeks, because he's doing all the technical difficult stuff that I don't know how to do. And everything that comes in, I split 50-50 with him. So it's not a lot to divvy up between the two of us. So yeah, like I said, I've got plans in place, because it's not like I get a new patron or two every week. It's a rare occurrence that I get that wonderful email alert telling me I've got a new patron. So I've got other stuff in the works to hopefully try and not rely on donations as much. But obviously, if people can contribute, then it all helps. And like I say, £1 a month is, if that's what all you can give, then if enough people did it, it would just be an absolute game changer.
And again, such a valuable tool, such an important tool. I get lost in that for hours sometimes, just looking, oh, what's this?
Well, I mean, by the way, this is version 1. I believe version 2 will be launching this summer, which has literally been in development since we launched version 1. We've been taking away new developments, new pieces, smarter things, so everything loads quicker and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty excited about version 2, which hopefully maybe if I can do that kind of relaunch and there's a bit more functionality and a few, like some of the features are going to be pretty incredible. Like I'm super excited. I'm not going to reveal anything yet, but some of the stuff, like I'm absolutely buzzing about being able to release it. And I know the traffic is going to go crazy compared to what it is now. So hopefully more eyes on it means more patrons, but it's tough. Wikipedia, I'm sure probably doesn't. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I use Wikipedia all the time. I've never paid. So can I complain about people not doing it? It's the same model? Not really.
This is better than Wikipedia, though.
You've probably not got quite the depth across the entire world of information. But yeah, I mean, I'm proud of it. And it's something I obviously want to see stick around, because my take on the long term of it is I won't be doing it in 10 years' time. If it's like 5 years' time, maybe, depending on how life evolves. But the big thing for me is thinking about those players that are going to come along in 5 years' time that won't benefit from the platform. And that kind of just kills me. That I don't want to be that guy. But you have to prioritize your self-care and well-being, and that's what I've learned the hard way, because I've been doing this since 2014. So it's been a long time with not good life balance, and I've turned that around, thankfully, in the last couple of years, and kind of understood that my health is going to really suffer if I don't. So I'm in a really good place, and hopefully that comes across on screen that I'm quite a happy person these days.
It does.
But yeah, it's hard, because there's always that nagging thing that if I'm having my kind of downtime that I know I need to relax, the PC sat over there thinking, I did 10 minutes on that, it might get a kid a scholarship. And that's a hard thing to say, no, me first for a couple of hours.
It is. But like you say, you've got to.
Yeah, because you could change someone's life with 10 minutes of my time putting out a tweet. And it's hard to switch that mindset off and put yourself first. But I try my best, guys. I think I do all right.
I think you do more than all right. I think a lot of people would agree with that. You do definitely more than all right, Dave.
Even now, I'm thinking we've been running for quite a long time. I need my self-care and downtime because it's getting late. It's 9:38 for those who watch this whenever it goes out. So it's sleepy time for old man Dave. But there's so many players on this list that we haven't mentioned, and I feel really bad.
I would have loved to do, a 6-hour special of absolutely everyone on the list, but I think that's just testament to the amount of talent that we've got in this country and the amount of fantastic players that we do have.
I'll just reel off a few that we definitely should have spoken about. I don't think we. So Fatmatah Janneh, I think that's how you say it. Am I right on that? Yeah. Superstar. She's of the level of Faye Endean and some of the other names we've mentioned. Like, she's right up there. She's got a D1 scholarship. I forget which college because I'm not amazing on that. Might be on. She's at St. Peter's too. Yeah, I thought that is the same one, isn't it? St. Peter's, the Joe Leedens.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to be I might have to buy access to something just to watch that team next season because it's just like a GB All-Star team.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
And then I don't think we mentioned Ebere Egbirika, Blanche Toualeu. I'm not sure about that one. Toualeu, thank you. Emily O'Connell cover Felicia Jacobs. Yeah, so we did Violet Stutz and Emily O'Connell from Cola, but Cola are loaded. Like, Felicia's another under 17, played GB under 16s, very much on the radar now. Beret and Blanche were 2 third years this year, so they both kind of, really peaked this year and show what they can do. I haven't heard anything about them in terms of scholarships or anything like that, but Cola are usually a bit cagey and their signings get announced a little bit later maybe, so hopefully they've found a good situation. Obviously, as under 19s, they can't stay on for another year or anything like that. So hopefully they've got their next step sorted, whatever it may be. And one that I really know very little about because she's been in the States, like Leia Edwards, is Maisie Crowley. So I'm pretty sure she played for Barking Abbey in D1 when she was like an under 16. So
producer Daz has to speak.
Go for it.
I didn't want to do this to you guys. I wanted to stay out. That was my plan. My plan has been foiled by Dave Owen. Let me tell you about Maisie Crowley. I don't know much about Maisie Crowley. We can, of course, go to the resource that is daveowen.com.
Yeah, with the nose taps from high school, of course.
But here is the thing. If you want to see Maisie Crowley, and let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, listening to producer Daz, you want to see Maisie Crowley. Hoops Fix Pro-Am. She's there. She's playing every Sunday between now and the 16th of July. At the Hoops Fix Pro. Get your tickets, hoopsfix.com. They're free, but you've got to register. You've got to get down there. We've got to be safe. We're in Brixton. And also, it's on YouTube. Watch it there. Listen to your boy, Darren. Now, Maisie Crowley. She is so impressive. Like, obviously, like you say, came through at London Lions second team. Now playing at Bishop McNamara. Brentwood Fire before that. She was playing U16 Premier at age 13. That to me says something. She's 17 years old. She's 6'2" tall.
I will caveat that. I think she probably played under 16 that year. I find it hard to know what actual team they played on because obviously no stats, but I'm guessing she played under 16 or 13.
Like, honestly, she's so impressive. She looks so... Just her basketball looks years beyond her actual age. Also at the Hoops Fix, we do have Isi Ozzy-Momodu, we do have Fatmatah Janneh playing. Last year, Katie Cox as well, who again, she was super impressive in her performances last year. Really impressive stuff from them. And I don't know if Kaz was going to get to it, but I have to do this. Not a British player, as you're about to see, but did do a lot of junior basketball here for Reading Rockets and then at Anglia Ruskin University before the pandemic. Destroyed the dreams of that side. Noah Sanchez Marquez is going to debut for Uruguay this weekend against Meli Greta, as we all know, one of my favourite basketball players who has ever lived, Argentina. And again, that is our British youth system. The WNBL rather, the WABL, producing international caliber basketball players, and daveowen.basketball.co.uk rather, is a part of that. But yeah, big shout, Noah Sanchez Marquez.
Thanks, Darren.
All right, producer Daz is away now. Bye.
So yeah, that was awesome insight because I was aware that as an under 16 playing up in D1 women, that's quite rare. So you tend to know the talent, and obviously if they're 6'2", then they pretty much stand out on the female side. And yeah, massive shout out to 6. Like I watched a few of the games on YouTube from week 1 of the Pro-Am, and immediately figured out, can I afford to go to the finals in London with the hotels and trains and everything else that means traveling from Shropshire? And I'm just doing it because for me, about homegrown hype. And I put this out on Twitter that there's literally no better competition for me to watch because any league I watch obviously has like imports and stuff like that. Yeah. With, there's homegrown hype players there, and it's the mix of talent as well. Like it's the overseas pros, the GB guys, the guys in college, the rising under 19s. Like it's literally all the areas of the game that I get most excited about, seeing the veterans playing up against the up-and-coming juniors and all the rest of it. And it's just nearly all homegrown high talent, or at least guys that are based in the UK that have been here for years, even if they don't have a British passport, that we're all familiar with. So, yeah, like it's just the best basketball I can watch. Like, I'm not a huge fan of kind of like pick-up style games, but obviously because it's not a one-off like an all-star game, then you're going to see some better basketball because the team's going to get used to each other. When it's just a select team thrown together, it's difficult to get any kind of synergy, and everyone wants to get their exposure and get their shots up and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that the standard will be incredible, and I really encourage anyone to watch those games, because the mix of talent and just different age groups. You've got guys that are top playing elite leagues, right down to the 17. I don't know what the youngest kids are, 17, 18 or whatever. That are kind of it's that opportunity to show what they can do against the top end kind of homegrown British talent. So yeah, I'm definitely getting to that final. I'm hoping it's not that hard to get tickets. It's on my calendar the day they're released, and I'm trying to get one. If I don't, I'll definitely buy one off someone because I'm going. I've booked a hotel either way, so I'm getting a ticket somehow.
You'll be there.
Yeah, it's not something I want to miss, because obviously, like, so much basketball happens around the country that it would just be so expensive for me to go to, because where I live is the worst place in the country geographically for basketball, because Manchester, Birmingham even is like an hour and a half away from me. So even though I'm West Midlands, I'm just so far away. Like Wales, I'm practically in Wales. So, and like London's always just a time dump. It's like 4 hours door to door, and then I don't want to do that back and forth in one day. So I've got a cost of a London hotel. So it's like I want to be around so much more basketball, but obviously with the time limitation of everything I do, then it's like how much time am I willing to just dump sat on a train for 4 hours? And
yes.
So YouTube is my best friend, basically.
But you'll beat the Hoops Fix.
Yeah. So if anyone's never met me or wonders who that guy is with the stats, then yeah, I should be around and hopefully kind of meet up with the community, which is always something I feel like I miss out on, just being around the game and speaking to all those people that I kind of speak to on social media and stuff, and I'm promoting their players or the players themselves. So yeah, it's always really great to have those opportunities to catch up with people in person and just people to get to know me a little bit, I guess, because I'm kind of in the wilderness and in the background with what I do.
Yeah, no, events like that are always fantastic to meet up with the community and get to put a face to names or Twitter handles and things.
And those like the vibes at those kind of independently run events are so different to kind of obviously the very kind of professional structured like organizations like BBL Basketball. And obviously they run their events as they're supposed to as a kind of organization, but the more independent ones just have more kind of just freedom to just kind of like wander around and speak to people. It's just a different vibe. So yeah, like I highly recommend anyone going, but I want a ticket, so don't take my ticket, please.
Right, so I think that does it then for our homegrown hype episode.
Let me just check. Abbey Whitehouse, she deserves a shout out. There's someone called Mary Adebiyi-Ojo who's also playing in US high school, came out in Youngbloods. I don't know basically anything about her aside from the fact that I caught that she signed in the States, so got her on the website. Miriam Carrasco Menendez at the Oaklands program, played quite a lot of minutes WBBL. So Erin Powell we touched on with her scoring numbers. Natalie Charity, we definitely should.
Oh yes,
silly scoring numbers, and she's got a D2 scholarship, I believe.
Yes, I've just seen. I forget where. But she has signed.
I never can remember the colleges. Too many signings, too many good players.
And again, coming through a product of the Nottingham Wildcats Academy. And
I really like that game. Actually, I've seen a fair bit of a little bit of WBBL and some GB stuff. So yeah, I do like her game. She's definitely a scorer. And I'll just rattle through the list without going into any detail, just to not miss anyone out. So Molly, is it Lavin or Lavin?
Lavin.
Yeah, so she's already a freshman at, I think it's American International. She's had a pretty strong. I mean, obviously, most players who are freshmen don't get on my kind of list because obviously you don't generally get a lot of playing time as freshmen. It usually comes a little bit later. So pretty impressive that she's already kind of performing at that level. Clementina Odom from Barking Abbey, Misi Salu. Daisy Porter, Cleo Lewis-Gayle, Macy Cook, Kizzy Spence. I'll attempt this one. I think Daz's Spanish pronunciation is better than mine. Alejandra Escriva-Gay, or
Yes,
something along those lines.
Yeah, for Manchester.
Jacqueline Osei at Oaklands and Amber Thompson at Sevenoaks. I think that is everyone that deserves a little shout out. But I think we went into detail on most of the top players, and we only have so much time. So sorry to those we didn't speak about. But I tried to get every name in that was on my list.
We could be here for days, couldn't we? If we and there are so many players to talk about, so much talent in this country. It's so exciting, such an exciting time for British basketball. So make sure to check out the players we've been speaking about in the 2022-23 season that's starting in September, whether they're here, whether they're in the States, and just keep an eye on British basketball in general, see who's coming through. Loads of great events. Check out the Basketball England website for the events coming up this year, and keep an eye on all the socials. GB Basketball have got tournaments coming up for the under 20s, under 18s, under 16s as well, I believe.
Yeah, all three are going this year. They're starting pretty soon. I think it's, I can't remember which one's first. I've got up with all the dates. They all kind of cross over, but they run across the summer. But I think the first one's starting pretty soon. All the GB camp squads for each age group were announced maybe a week or so ago. So if you want to see which names are in each age group squad, that's available publicly for everyone to see. And hopefully celebrate. I think a lot of clubs, they love seeing those announcements and celebrating all their players that have been selected, which is always really nice to see.
Definitely, yeah. And as we said, this is the future. This is the future of British basketball. So make sure to check these players out. So thank you to everyone that's watched this episode. We'll put some links in the comments to the to highlight tapes of players that have them. We'll link to the stats page, Dave's stats page for the players as well, so you can check out more of people that you like the sound of. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.